Welcome to this episode of Estate Agency X. Today, myself and Rob are talking to Lee O'Brien, who runs IAD. It's a great conversation. We talk about how Lee first got into estate agency, but then how him and his business partner, David, set up their small independent estate agency in a small market town in Essex, how they started to grow it. They had ambitions of opening multiple branches, and they did. And then how their mindset on that started to change and why it started to change, how they moved off-site, how they started a self-employed model before self-employed was a thing, and how they have now grown it to be one of the biggest self-employed brands in the UK with over 130 different self-employed agents covering the whole nation. It's a beautiful conversation. I hope you enjoy it.
Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady.
Okay, Lee, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, mate.
So we always start off with a person just giving us a bit of background on themselves. Do you want to do that quickly and then we'll jump into a bit more about it?
So I suppose a lifelong agent, one of the sort of old school agents. Didn't work hard enough at school to go to university, so to get straight into a role. I was talking to someone this morning. I started in agency at 17. Used to work early evenings after school, and then used to work a full Saturday to help in a very traditional agency. So probably early 2001, 2, something like that. And then, end of sixth form came and I wanted a proper role, really enjoyed it. I really liked sort of the whole process. I went out with the owner a few times and saw a few clients and just thought, this could actually be for me. I really like it. And then just started applying for jobs. He was promising me a role, but it just never transpired. So I went down the high street with my CV to every agent. And actually, it was a William H. Brown agent that was the one that sort of really engaged me the most and said, I like you and I'll get you an interview. A week went by, nothing. So I phoned him and I said, you said you'd get me an interview. And he's like, I will. I just haven't seen him yet. I haven't seen the director. I'll come back to you. So another couple of days went by. I phoned him again. Rocco, you said you'd get me through the door to see John. No, I haven't been able to speak to him yet. And then another 3 days went by. And little did I know, I was prospecting, and I was following him up, follow up, and he got me the interview. I got the job and started my career at William H. Brown, which was great. It was a really good start. Corporate estate agency. They had 360 offices at the time, part of the Skipton Group, and it was a really good founding. And it was actually there that I then met my business partner David, who we then broke away from corporate agency and started on our own in 2004.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And then when I came across you guys for the first time, probably, I don't know, a few years after that, let's just call it like 2010, 11, I guess, somewhere around that sort of time, you'd then taken that business on, because the point where I came across David Lee, as the company was called, you had 2 or 3 offices, I think, by that point. You were sort of seen as one of the sort of trendier independent agents that are making waves. Like, you've established a good business. So, there must have been a bit of a learning curve between, say, when you left William H. Brown with David and set it up to the point that I've just explained. What was the process in your minds between sort of starting that business and then let's open another branch and then, I don't know, go on from there? Like,
I think our whole sort of vision on how we were going to go about building the business was around get one business going, find that success. And actually, when we first opened it, I don't think we had a broader vision beyond opening our own estate agency. We only did sales, but we knew we could be quite disruptive, and the market that we chose was an area that we both knew. There was only 2 agents in the market. We felt that they were both quite sleepy, and we felt that we could disrupt it. So we created this pink and black brand. We wanted to be different from the start. Funnily enough, we were the only agent in that little area that advertised on Rightmove at the time in 2004, which is bonkers, but it was only like 4 or 5 years old. So not everybody was doing it. But because we'd come from a Connells background, we were on it. So we'd kind of felt the benefit of the portal. So we were portal listed agents, which gave us a little bit of an edge in our market. Within about 18 months, one of the two agents had closed down. So we'd sort of certified our position in that local area that we wanted to operate. And then we kind of had an ethos between David and I that every year after the first sort of 2 years, don't get me wrong, we borrowed some money to start the business, quickly ran out of money, and then had to go and borrow some more money to try and get us through that first sort of 9 months, 12 months before the money started to arrive. But probably after the second year, going into the third, we decided every year we wanted to do something. We wanted to make a progressional step forward in the business. So we went sort of 5, 6. So 2006, we wanted to sort of push ourselves forward, and we actually made a property investment between us. Then in 2007, we started a lettings business. In 2008, we got involved in another new department within the business and made another investment. And every year we were sort of had it on our radar to build something. And that, I think, at that moment was where we started to look beyond the single office entity in operation. We'd built a business that was working, it was serving our clients and our customers. And then we just saw other agents and other agencies that we admired, and they had multiple offices. So we thought, well, that's the route. That's how we're going to go. And we were like, right, we're going to build a 10 office business, and we're going to sort of proliferate the areas around us and organically grow and expand our territory. And that's when we started to think, right, Bishop Stortford was the next big town. We were already doing business there, but we felt we could do so much more. And we started a journey to find suitable premises at that time to be able to open the next office number 2. So that was in 2010. We opened office 2. And then that sort of stretched and split us. And one had to be somewhere, one had to be elsewhere. And we had to kind of navigate that process of, right, we've now got to split our time. We're not together all the time, sort of managing the business side by side, but we had to create team meetings and try and enforce team culture. And I don't know if you remember it, but we had a meeting room in our Bishop Stortford office, but it was in the basement and it was like a dungeon. And we had a big board table down there, but there was plaster off the walls and it was a low ceiling and you had a really tight staircase to get down to it. And we'd hold our sort of Friday morning meetings there to bring all the team together. And it was nice. It was just that ethos of kind of old school of bringing people together, combining the two offices. And we found our way. Yeah. We found our way through that. And then it was the push over the next couple of years to 2016, and we opened our third office. And that was the route that we were going down. But the third office added complete complexity we no longer were David or I in one of the offices to run it. And it required a different sort of headspace and mindset of management and management layers within the processes and structures and trust. And I don't know what they're doing. And are they doing the right things? And if the results weren't coming, then it was everybody else's fault and problem that we'd got something wrong. And it was closely after that, probably within a year to 18 months of that we started to think, I'm not sure having 10 offices is the answer, I'm not sure opening another office with another load of investment, step by step was the way to really grow this business. And that's when we started to look at the associate model, which is what we called it at the time.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember talking to you around that time about it. And there were a lot of agents that I was talking to about the idea of leaving the high street. It seems a bit weird now actually talking about it, because I think you'd need to have been there at the time to really get it. A bit like anything, a bit like how the world was before the internet and all that sort of stuff.
So
but
even the paper,
even that sort of stuff, right? So, but at the time, the concept was really based around the idea of like, is this worth it being on the high street? It's quite an expense, and there's nowhere to park and all of this sort of stuff. And the downside felt almost, to put it into context for people that weren't there, a bit like the idea of saying, is it worth being on Rightmove? It's like, well, we're here now, so do we really want to rock this boat?
Mm-hmm.
You might be right with what you're saying, but Jesus, like, it's a big step. And I kind of remember us talking about it, and one of the big concerns was like, the other agents might eat us for breakfast. They're going to just say we've gone out of business.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to say, oh, they moved down the road. They're going to go, no, they're gone.
They've closed.
Yeah. And it was a massive, bold step at the time to go, we think that we could give a better customer experience if we had an out-of-town place whereby people could park and we could centralize things and processes and all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge, it doesn't even sound like a big thing now, but it was really quite, what's the word, visionary at the time. There wasn't anybody else where you went, oh, we're going to follow their blueprint.
No, nobody else was actually doing it. And I think we probably took between 2018 to 2019 thinking about it, like trying to decide what we could do. We were looking for this perfect premises that we could say, actually, we were still in, which was probably our biggest market was Bishop Stortford. So we wanted to ensure that we had a CM23 postcode so that when you search for an estate agent on Rightmove, we still existed. So that when the other agents told all our customers that we'd closed, they could still find us. Well, we couldn't find a premises within Bishop Stortford that worked for what we wanted to achieve. At the time, you're saying that the comments around parking, some of our agents, and unfortunately, some of our most junior agents were picking up 2 to 3 parking tickets a week by parking in the local car park, going out at 10 a.m. viewing, try and go back to that car park that you paid for all day and not finding a space, then parking it on the yellow line to try and get back in there, getting caught up on calls for getting it, £30 parking ticket, 3 times a week, 5, 6, 7 times a month. On actually, like, that could get really expensive, and we weren't paying for that because it just wasn't. We weren't paying for their fines, so I actually started to feel really bad that the environment that we were creating for our teams was no longer suitable. We were making real effort never to close the door because we said we were open 9 till 6, Monday to Friday, open on a Saturday. So we were ensuring that somebody was always remained in the office, but no one was coming in. So what were they doing? Like, they're far better out in front of the customer, in the customer's home, talking to potential clients, rather than sitting in the office waiting for people to come in that never came. And this started to really grate upon us as to this isn't working anymore, and we need to think of it differently. So yeah, this centralized offering just became more and more an obvious choice for us as we got deep into it. But we were absolutely worried, and we engaged you guys to help us with a full marketing plan to be able to explain to our customers that we haven't closed. This is where we are. This is why we've done it. And that was a fully structured plan that we worked on for 6 months to get ready to be able to talk to our customers about that move that we made finally in January of 2020.
And what happened? Like, in hindsight, what did you worry about that you needn't have worried about? And what did you not worry about that you should have worried about?
I think we worried that our customers thought we'd disappeared. And to a degree, there was an element of that. In the small village, one of the small villages that we operated in, we did initially lose market share. We did initially lose that, oh, they've gone. But the marketing that we then put in place to be able to communicate with those customers before we moved and after started to play through. We actually never saw through that full marketing plan because March the 22nd, the day before lockdown, we actually closed the door on our office in our new office where everybody was working from. And at that point, we stopped the marketing to tell everybody where we'd gone anyway. And actually what the blessing in disguise was at that point was the whole lockdown situation explained to the customer that you no longer needed a high street office and you couldn't have one even if you did have one. And I think the beauty of that position where we were is that we were able to put agents back in that office on the 15th of May, whereas all the high street agents weren't able to do it for nearly 6 months. And then when they did, they had to have a little velvet rope across the front door because you couldn't let anybody in anyway. Or you had to have the door locked, and their return to the normal market that they were sitting in before was far slower than ours. And we were able to be back to business on the 15th of May. And in the depths of that crisis that we were sitting in, that everybody was sitting in, that's when we launched our self-employed estate agency.
Right.
offering.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know you're dying to jump in. I just want to quickly finish off this bit. Like, so then you've gone, right, let's just recap on that. You've gone, I work for a corporate, I'm going to open an estate agency. Lots of people do that. My dream is to have lots of branches. Lots of people do that. You started on that path. You started making the branches. You started to realize, like, yeah, it looks like we're successful on the outside because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But I'm stopping for a minute to realize, like, all the money's going on fucking parking tickets and other random shit. And scaling this is going to be a problem. And you've gone, let's go to a centralized hub. You moved to the centralized hub. That seems to work. And then what made you think, self-employed model seems like a good idea? Because there wasn't a self-employed model at the time. Like,
no.
you know, what was it that made you think, like, what you call associate?
Yes.
Let's go down this road.
So it was actually the business Hortons in Leicestershire that first created my attention around this kind of self-employed agent that worked alongside the business, that was sort of powered and supported by the business to operate independently. And they were offering territories and they had a package. And I looked at that and I was like, that actually could work. Like, we had strong tools. We had strong conviction around what we did as an agent and how we trained and supported people. And we believed that actually over a period of years leading up to this point, we'd lost great agents because we couldn't pay them enough money. We'd lost them to Dubai. We'd lost them to central London. And I started at one point, we're just like a training academy. Yeah. Like, we're training up great agents and that we're losing them because we can't take them from 50 to 90 to 120. We can't do that in our business model. We just couldn't afford it. Like, we weren't earning that money either. So we just couldn't take them in that direction. And with Adam's model at Hortons, I was like, maybe we could. If we can mirror something along those lines, then I went deep. So then I was looking at everybody that had an offering. Fine and Country had a bit of an offering at the time. A couple of other agents did. I started to look at Australian models, American models, and think, can I bring a collective of this together? Try and find the weaknesses in their offerings and replace that with some strengths that we can offer as a business. And that was where I started to form and formulate what our offering would be. And yeah, we called it the associate model, but for every intents and purposes, it's a self-employed estate agency model working within our business. And that was one of the key points as to why we centralized our business, because we thought we need to centralize all of the support and operations and then grow. And we thought we would grow organically.
Yeah, I love it. It's almost like, I mean, you know, I'm not saying there's no great judgment in there. There's a lot of great judgment and a lot of gambles that you took. I know firsthand some of the gambles that you took there, but it just, everything happened at the right time as well. Like, almost, I know it wasn't chance, but, you know, like, you had the centralized hub, and then COVID came, and then self-employed came. It was like perfect, just dominoes falling, you know. Sorry, Rob, I know you've been waiting to jump in.
No, it's fine. I've just been listening. It's quite, what I was about to say is quite interesting, because I remember joining 2018, 19, and I remember you guys coming down in that Worley's Park. We had sat downstairs, and
yes, we did.
That was the concern. And at the time, I'd left the traditional agency high street thinking, fucking hell, these guys, like, they're gonna. And everything you were saying, it was so relatable, because you know, we had people getting parking tickets because it's around the corner and you couldn't get back in and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, like, these guys are really thinking about not just resting on, like most agencies do. They rest on the same thing. We just keep going, we keep going, and then wondering why they're like here in the market, or how the market demands them to be is completely different, and the gap's too greater for them to physically change. How did you operate that from a leadership perspective on the transitions? Because you had quite aggressive transitions over a 5-year period. Most businesses stay the same for like 10, 15, 20 years. One office, maybe two, a tick over, market share, disruptor comes in, they try and play it off. And you've gone, like, your whole team sat there, they're in 3 offices, now saying, right, don't worry, guys, we're not closing down, but we're going to move to this other office, just trust us. And then, like, you do that, and then 6 months later, don't worry, guys, but, like, we're going to do this new associate model. Like, how how did you have those conversations? Because some leaders that would be thinking, okay, I can't even get them to like do evaluation correctly, bearing in mind having those important sessions.
So in 2017, we started for the first time bringing the full team together. It was part of this sort of, like, when we went to 3 offices, we were like, how do we bring this team together to be able to work together and ideate? And we really appreciated the information that the team could share. And we started to host our version of a corporate offsite, basically. And we'd never done it up until that point. And we went to a hotel. We went to Hanbury Manor in Ware, and we booked the meeting room for the day. We booked some overnights, and we spent the whole day presenting the results of the business, presenting kind of the targets of what we wanted to achieve over the next year. But the most valuable part of the session was the no holds barred ideas session. And what we were trying to do, and what became very apparent over the next coming years, is that we were going through a process of like red teaming ourselves. So we were trying to disrupt our own business from within. And we were trying to look at what are the new things that we should try? What's coming down the track? What technology should we use? How should we operate and behave as an agency group? And operationally, what can we do to support that? And we would come away with a page of ideas that we would then take and implement over the next 12 months. And then we'd come back at the end of the next year in the next session, and we'd report back to the team to go, look, guys, do you remember 12 months ago, these were some of the things, and guess what? Strike through all of the things that we've done and we've tried, to almost get those sort of juices flowing, a readiness to go again. And actually the disruption and the ideation came from within the group. So when we did make a decision, we'd almost made it collectively and with the visibility of the everybody in the business.
That's cool. And then like so we've gone through the different stages. You've started the associate model, and many companies have been down that road. Not many have then gone on to be acquired by one of the biggest self-employed agencies in the world and started making acquisitions themselves. So how did that start to come about, to go from what you and David had thought up would be a associate model to suddenly attracting attention to wanting to be acquired by an international brand?
Yeah. So I had a belief that the existing setup within agency in the UK wouldn't value the business that we were building as a brokerage. We'd committed at that point in the middle of 2020 that actually self-employed was a great way forward. Our first few agents were really finding early success, and over the next couple of years, we could see them like changing their lives, like changing cars and moving houses and really building something. And that gave us both like immense pride and sort of ambition to continue to do more of it. So we started to advertise and promote ourselves and look for more and more agents, because our first agent joined the business. They were 2 hours away from the office. Now, that's definitely not what we thought was going to happen, but she was able to spin up a brilliant business, was supported by us, and it kind of proved the model to ourselves that actually location for us can be overcome. It doesn't need to be 20 minutes away from the office for us to be able to help them to succeed. So our ambition for sort of a national growth plan was at play, really, and we were building towards it. We thought we'd need to build towards maybe a 50 agent group before we would attract enough attention. And like I said just then, we knew that the traditional agency buyers were not going to value the business that we built. We didn't know how to value it, and we knew they wouldn't know how to value it at the point, but we knew that actually it was the future of where we were going. And funny enough, I wrote down just privately with a coach, the vision of where I wanted to see it. And I thought, actually, I think the buyer for our business is going to be a private equity backed buyer that could see the growth of the model. And almost, it wasn't even any more detailed than that, but sort of lo and behold, IAD, private equity backed, huge model across Europe, and they were looking to expand with people that believed in self-employed agency. But how I think that came about was through the way in which we promoted ourselves. So we started to advertise to agents and potential agents in the market. But I actually went through a business coaching process in the years leading up to that, called KPI, with Daniel Priestley. And with that, it was all about ensuring that you stood out for something within your business and industry. And for me, it was trying to stand out as somebody that had tread this path of self-employed, now wants to support others going on exactly the same path to build a business in their own right. And I believed it was the future of agency for great agents. I feel you could earn more, you could get autonomy over your time, and with the right control and support around you, gives you a much higher chance of success in this tough world. So that was what I believed in. So I started talking about it. I started trying to promote myself in that way, and write newsletters and do videos, and started to build this sort of energy around the business, the sector, which again was still in its infancy at the time, to create myself as one of the leaders in the space, one of the talkers, one of the thinkers in the space. And this was all based on the KPI strategy. And when we were finally approached by IAD, I was approached at the EA Masters in 2022. Just completely randomly, just came through as a text message on my phone from one of the guys, and they were, look, really want to chat to you about all things self-employed. We run a model in Europe. I was like, who are you? I don't know who you are. They'd never been in the UK, so we just never come across them. Looked into them. I was like, wow, this is legit. These are a big firm, big organization. And David and I, we're always very transparent, always open for a chat, got a big network, love talking to people, meeting people. So we agreed at this event to have a lunch. We went to King's Cross, had a lunch. There was 3 guys that turned up, and we shared our story, and we talked about a little bit about what they did, not a great deal about what they did. And then they were asking us about, like, what's next? Like, what could be the next thing for you? And David and I went through, right, we'd like to do this. We'd like our agents to build teams. We'd like them to have the ability to track and manage all of their income and all that from their teams. And we had a few ideas that we shared with them, and they just sort of politely smiled and nodded away. And then just sort of were able to share with us that essentially everything that we were looking to build into the future, they have in place already. They are looking to bring their business into the UK, and they want to do a partnership deal, an acquisition deal with people here, boots on the ground, that know the model, that are established in the community and believe it is the future. And that's exactly the story we've been telling. That was what we believed. That was where we were going with the business. And it was a brilliant alignment at the time. I later found out that actually we were recommended to them. And I know who it was by, but I don't think that would have ever happened unless I'd raised my profile in the first instance to be part of this sort of self-employed movement of agents, talking about it, creating that presence, that then enabled me to be sitting at that lunch table to be able to take it through. And the guys left that lunch table and said, right, we don't need to talk to anybody else. We want to do a deal with those guys. And then again, we found that out later, but then that all sort of proceeded from there over the next 6 months until we finalized the deal in the 12th of June, 2023, which is,
wow,
nearly 3 years ago.
It's a great example of, like, you get what you pitch for, right?
Yeah.
You want this stuff, but you're not telling anyone about it. Start telling people about it. Start even just write it down somewhere.
Well, that was the weird thing, and I've still got the email. I've got it as like a saved email on my drafts, like an outbox one. And I read it, and I'm like, it's like uncanny. It's weird.
Yeah. It's also weird that, like, people think it's going to happen even though they haven't written it down anywhere and aren't telling anyone about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now suddenly the deal happens. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but obviously, like, deal happens, and it's no longer David Lee. It's now IAD.
Yeah.
And again, like Rob said, you've got to tell all the staff now, like, new thing. But I guess by now they've got a lot of trust in the fact that, like, well, we're following you.
Yeah, they're quite used to us changing it up. So like I said, every year we were doing something. We were changing something. We were developing something. So we were constantly trying to disrupt ourselves on the way through. So they were pretty resilient to that. But this one was one of the hardest because we weren't able to be open with them on the way through in the decision-making process. And we'd essentially had 7 months to get used to the fact that we were about to do this, think about the pros and cons in our mind, go through the disaster scenarios in our mind, come through the other side. And then we told them all, and we expected them to be at the level we were at within about 3 days. And that was a massive mistake on our part. It really was. And I say that to them today. I say that in our new transactions and deals, is that do not expect the people that you tell to be at the level that you are of conviction when you've only given them 6 hours to digress what you just said.
It's like that first meeting that you had all over again, isn't it? Where you and David probably come away and went, well, could be good, could be bad, blah, 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 blah. And
well, at the end of the first meeting, they were like,
ever.
At the end of the first meeting, they go, yeah, so we'll be coming back next month. We'd love to meet again. And I was like, hold on a minute. Like, I just told you a lot about my business. I'm not doing that again. Like, you need to tell me what your intentions really are. Like, if we're going to do this again, we really need to know I'm not dating anymore. Like, I need to know what's next.
How was the translation between the two types of models? Because obviously their business is predominantly Europe.
Yeah.
Most of the industry look towards America and Australia because it's the same language. They can understand an element to it. And like, it's a different type of model and culture out there in those two. But obviously, like, translation of words, but also cultures between Europe and UK.
Yeah.
It's two different markets, two different ways of doing it. So how did that go about, as in what they might have expected, how the UK market interacts, and what you then had to almost educate them as the acquisition? Was there...
So I think one of the major reasons that they hadn't looked at the UK, because by the time we opened here, they were already present in 6 countries, already had 18,000 agents that they were supporting. So they were a big entity. And it was like, why haven't you been here already? And it was almost like a flippant comment, but it was like, you only charge 1%. Why would we do that? Like, we get 4, 5, 6% everywhere else. We don't think it can work. But they hadn't actually gone a layer deeper into the research and looking at the productivity of the agents, the average house price across the country, and the way in which actually the commissions are split. And it was one of the British agents within IAD that had kind of repitched the idea to the network owners and the CEO that we really should be in the UK. It's a really important market. And they know that, a really important market. But they were like, you need to look at the finances and the economics of it again. And essentially so for instance, in our French market, they charged just over 4% on average across the country. And we were like, okay, cool. But then how many of those deals are split deals, like buying a buying agent and a selling agent? Oh, maybe 75%. It was like, okay, so it's really 2%, not 4%, right? And what's the average house price? About 170 grand. Okay, so ours is like 350. So, and then how many do they do a year? Oh, well, then we're averaging like 6 to 7 deals. So we're like, okay, well, one of our average agents will do like 16 deals. So when you looked at the pure economics, and we do more because we have to, but that's kind of commonplace and common practice for an agent here in the UK. I think when people do it, they do take it on like full on and they go for it. So when we got into looking at the economics, we weren't too far apart on a per deal basis when you look at the like per agent. And I think that's what kind of opened their eyes to the fact that this is viable. This is a slightly different market. They call it a more professional market to other areas across Europe, even though we're not licensed. I think the quality of what we produce and the way in which the agents operate is definitely deemed as a more professional market than others. And one of the main points, which it was really encouraging, and I can promise you it has been adhered to ever since from our CEO, is that we know 70% of the model works. 30% of the model needs localizing to culture and to country. And that's why we've got you. And they've lived by that. They have let me make the changes that are necessary, bring the tools in that are required to give the agents what they need to be able to go and be successful in this local market. So yeah, that translation between a European business and the UK has actually been really quite well received. I mean, the people that I work with and my team at even French HQ all speak beautiful English. So there is no lost in translation pieces there. They're fantastic people and the English is amazing. But it's not like we've ended up trying to sort of compound a French model into a UK market. They're like, we know 30% of this has to change. We know it needs to be adapted to the local market to suit the needs of the agent. And that's what you're here to do. And that's where you're here to advise us. And that was the opportunity that David and I saw, was actually, if we can get into sort of the front-loaded positions here of this business, we can steer it to become the David Lee on steroid, on rocket fuel, to be able to go and launch across the UK. We lose our brand, and that was heartbreaking for us, because we built it for 19 years, and our ego lived on it, right? Like that was us.
Pink chair.
Pink chair, pink and black, pink boards, everything was there, and we lived that. We lived and breathed that brand, but we had to make a decision for the greater good of where we were going to take the business to the next level.
Yeah. Okay. And that sort of leads us on to the most recent part of the journey, the acquisition of Avocado.
Yes.
Who obviously you've just bought because they're pink.
Exactly. We were just trying to get that pink back. I just wanted a bit of like, just a pink bit of clothing.
All round the houses here, and now it's back.
I can get back out my pink merch. Yeah.
So look, from all the way back from where we started there, William H. Brown, a small independent, growing branches, moving out of town, turning on the, associate model, getting into COVID, getting bought by an international player, and now you are the guys that are doing the buy-in, and Avocado, a hugely successful brand, and now you guys have come to a merger, if you like. You purchased them, whatever way you want to look at it. So what's that step? Is it that you've seen something successful and you just want it to be part of, or is there more to it than that? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like, what a group of agents. What an amazing group of agents that are operating successfully in the self-employed model that we're in. Obviously, Mike and Ian only started the business in 2020 as well. So it was built from the ground up as a brokerage. The agents all joined it as brokers, as independent self-employed brokers, and they truly believe that self-employed agency delivered locally at high levels of service creates great results, and it does. And I've seen it, and I'm watching it, and I'm working with them now on a daily basis. As part of our growth strategy, not only do we have organic growth from within the network, where agents are introducing new agents to the business and building teams, we're doing outbound advertising and recruitment to talk to new agents about the possibility. I often say half the battle is actually explaining to people that self-employed is actually an option and exists, let alone choose IAD over one of the other competitors. Actually, you almost have an education piece and a sales pitch to kind of promote the model that you're offering. But as part of our strategy for growth, we have with this sort of acquisition of great teams and the onboarding of great teams within the business, great leaders within self-employed, like Mike and Ian, that have been able to come into the business with the Avocado team. The Avocado team lives on and will continue to grow, as the David Lee team did within IAD, and along with our other leading agents within the business are looking forward to continuing to grow their business inside of the IAD model. And that's a sort of accelerated phase of growth that we're seeing now within the IAD business, but is absolutely part of the strategy and has been since day one.
Wow. So Avocado at the moment, they still operate as Avocado? Or
they operate as the Avocado team at IAD. So they keep the pink. The Avocado brand lives on.
Just going to get a little bit of black in there.
Just a little IAD that we're still here. Yeah. So actually the association with the wider network, because that comes with its benefits, right? It's got the international community. You've got the wider group of agents to tap into.
Yeah.
And what they've been able to do is plug those agents into our model, giving the agents an even higher upside in commercials. So the agents can earn more. They can now have the ability, if they want to build a team and support other agents and grow their business within the framework. And one of the big points that they have with us now is actually the team that they build within the IAD model has a business value. And actually, it is an exit if they ever wanted to themselves in the future. And these were the things that they didn't have before. And Mike and Ian have said to them admittedly, we couldn't have offered you this stuff before. The accelerated things that we are now able to offer you as a business only comes by being part of a bigger network like IAD. And they've been able to retain their culture and their identity, their training processes, their onboarding, their regular meetups, all of that lives on, and we want that to live on. It's a great example of how to push forward a successful team, and that's also shared across the network, and people are like exchanging ideas, and it's a really collaborative space, our business, and it's really nice to see that happening and going on. And yeah, the avocado team, just watch out. It's just going to go from strength to strength.
It's almost like what I had said to you, isn't it? We know 70% of this model already.
Yeah.
30% will be how does the avocado model work? Like
Exactly.
Take the 70% and bolt the 30% on
We
top.
don't know it all. It's not done. It never will be. It's always an evolving project. And actually, I think, we're not naive or arrogant at any point enough to think that we've completed it. Yeah. And I think we're always learning.
It's almost like those days that you had back at David Lee, isn't it? Whereby, like, if everybody comes together and shares the ideas, then we'll get there a lot faster.
Yeah.
So, from a self-employed perspective, if someone was listening to this and thinking, right, I want to take that leap and want to go ahead, like, do they go under? Could they go under avocado or IAD directly?
Yeah.
Like, what would be the?
Yeah, so I suppose as it sits, there's multiple kind of teams within the business. So when you are introduced to the business or you talk to agents in the business, you could be talking to an avocado team agent, and you might choose, actually, that works for me. I like it. I'm going to join the avocado team. Or actually, you might know a great IAD agent and you want to be part of the IAD team. Yeah. We're all IAD and we're all promoting the same business, but it's just sort of teams within it. So it's very, very common in the US, where you have a brokerage and then you have teams within that brokerage. And this isn't really any different.
Yeah. Similar sort of thing, like, some of the Countrywide might have different brands, right? And each of those brands might work slightly different, but there's an overall thing. So how many self-employed agents across the IAD group now in the UK?
135 in the UK.
135. It's fucking insane, isn't it? Right? When you think about, it's just the beginning of the journey.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know.
Like, it's just from a personal point of view, you should be incredibly proud of what you've built there. And watching it from this side is fantastic to see. If you had to be, critical, or not even critical, like, when you look back, there must be, in hindsight, some like milestone moments that you didn't realize were milestone moments at the time, that, like, when we did that happened. What would you say, like, 2 or 3 of those milestones in hindsight, from all the way back to, like, being on the high street in Stalford, were the milestone moments that, like, led you here?
I think a couple of things that we did early on, and actually it's really weird, because when you talk to more agents, and we have done over the years and time, and sometimes in agency you end up in a little bit of an echo chamber, because if you go to some of, like, the training stuff, you end up with the same people. If you go to life cycle events, you end up with life cycle people, and then you all kind of think the same. And then you meet somebody that has never been to a life cycle event, or has never been to, even like a Property Mark 1 on Friday, right? And people go, oh, why are you spending the money to go to that? And I think from really early on in our business, we took finding out about new things, educating ourselves, going to events, and actually paying for mentors was just part of our business. And I think that, from, again, really early on, because we were both young, like, I was 20 when we started the business and we took out the loan and opened the high street shop. We knew we didn't know it all. And even today, like, I still have a coach, still pay for a coach. And I'm still working on myself all of the time, because I know that I don't know it all. The job is never done. And we've always had that kind of learning-based mindset, and we've invested in it. We put our money where our mouth is. We would always go to these events, David and I, and we'd say, if we come away with one idea, that was a day worth spending out of the business, but it was a day worth spending. One idea that we can implement in the business. And I think having that from early on and maintaining it all the way through was a massive point of difference for how we continue to think about our business and disrupt ourselves. I think those annual events with the team, the HQ team, was one of the big changing moments in our business as well. And we basically got that from working in Peter Knight's leadership groups and doing the masterminding. And we thought, actually, we've got like a really good team here. Why don't we mastermind with our own team at points and take the feedback from them to kind of improve the business? And that was a fundamental shift in how we operated. And I think by being open to learning and knowing that you never know it all and leaning into the team around you, I think that's what's kind of led us along and opened the doors to a lot of the other things that we've done.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've got one last question, unless you've got. So my last question then is, those 3 points that you've made out there are fantastic, but like what you're maybe not giving yourself enough credit for is the implementation of those ideas. You know, you came to an EAX, you saw Dan speak, you went on Dan's course, Daniel Priestley you mentioned earlier, and lots of people do, but you implemented. You know, you got a whiff of this idea of leaving the high street and opening a hub, and you just implemented it. And you got a whiff of this associate model, and you just implemented it. And then you got approached by somebody that might be interested in moving their international business into the UK, and you just went with it. So that, how do you get yourself to do that when it's more common for most people to procrastinate on something and like, but what if this goes wrong? Like, what advice have you got with anyone out there that's like, maybe they're sitting there, they're possibly back where you were in Stalford, a business owner? Like, I know, like, you know, there's plenty of opportunity with people that are employed, could come and work for you guys and they could earn incredible money and perhaps you could change their whole life. But a business owner, let's say, I know there's not necessarily like, you know, the same potential in a business owner for you personally, but just from an advice point of view, who's sitting there and they can see this whole world changing around them, but they're also onto quite a good thing. Like, how do they get themselves to go forward with it?
It's difficult when you're of a mindset where you are the procrastinator, you are the deep analysis that can kind of prevent yourself from moving forward. I'm not entirely sure. What I know from our business relationship was, even on a personality profile, you'd see it a mile off. I was the go forward, and David was the hold on a minute. Can we just check that a bit? And actually, between us, we found that happy medium that still kept us moving forward, but also gave me that moment to go, look, can you just check that and explain that to me again? Or can you let me run the numbers over here first before you go and sign that contract or go and implement that thing? And something that I've always been very focused on is the future of where I'm going, where the business is going. So I've always been able to kind of project myself into what could be, and always very much in an optimistic mindset. As a sort of born entrepreneur, like I've always been looking for the upside and the good outcome. And I think I've been able to bring a team along with me through that process. But throughout all of those big business decisions, up until sort of even today, like I have been go and David has been hold on, and the sort of just the handbrake sometimes that you need. I think if you are that person that is the go forward person and you don't have a handbrake, then get a coach, get somebody that you can run that past, get somebody to be your sort of your just that handbrake or that cross-checking person. If you're the person that is paralysis by analysis, I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know what can get you at bed to sort of push you to make that decision.
A coach,
maybe a coach might be able to entice that from you and give you. You just need somebody to be able to give you that positive outcome that could be. Because if that vision is big enough, I think you move towards it, whether you are procrastinating or not.
I love it. Thanks very much for coming in. Anything else you want to add?
No, it's been great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.